LoveLore Library. Chapter 1160. It turns out that he was a fool through and through, for he still did not know that Suyi was severely injured because she had tried to save Mu Ling. In the end, Mu Ling had even left her behind, wounded. Otherwise, Heartwarming would not have been so calm. However, Mu Ling was no longer able to hear the words Heartwarming had said after that. He stumbled, and he had only managed to avoid falling to the ground by holding on to the tabletop. His face turned even paler than before, and his mind was ringing, as if thunder was roaring, making him unable to think normally. In the end, even Mu Ling himself had no idea how he had left the inn. He blindly walked around alone for quite some time. He only returned to the Mu family when the sky had turned dark. He raised his head and looked at the gate of the magnificent courtyard. His heart felt like it had been repeatedly pierced by a sword until it was riddled with holes and fresh blood was flowing out. "Young Manor Master, you have returned." Han Feng, who had a limp as a result of having his limb broken by Nan Xian 2 years ago, came walking out. He was smiling as he said, "Lady Qingyan is waiting for you in the courtyard." Currently, everyone in the Mu family addressed Qingyan as aunt. Only Han Feng alone still insisted on holding on to this form of address. Mu Ling suddenly recovered his senses. His gaze landed on Han Feng's face. "Han Feng, how many years have you been following me?" Han Feng smiled. "Young Manor Master, I have followed you for almost 25 years. I remember that I was pursued by someone who wanted to kill me 20 years ago. Back then, I had severe injuries. It was you and Qingyan who had brought me back." Mu Ling faintly smiled and said, "In the beginning, only Suyi, Qingyan, and I left the Mu family, and we did not bring any guards. I guess Qingyan must have run quite a distance and finally managed to call for backup. She really has suffered quite a bit for me." Han Feng touched the back of his head. "In the beginning, the head of the family has dispatched me to follow Young Manor Master from the back, so I was not too far away from Young Manor Master. However, Lady Qingyan really cared about Young Manor Master. I saw Lady Qingyan looking very anxious. It was a good thing that when I went over, the person who was chasing after Young Manor Master had already been chased away by an unknown warrior, me for extra chapters." Mu Ling clenched his fists tightly. Luckily Qingyan was not injured. Otherwise, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life. Han Feng did not suspect anything when he heard Mu Ling's calm reply. He respectfully said, "Young Manor Master, although Lady Qingyan was not wounded, she indeed does care about Young Manor Master. Please forgive me for being blunt. These days, Young Manor Master has indeed been a little cruel toward her." Ordinarily, Han Feng had always spoken to Mu Ling humbly. He only had the courage to speak such words when it came to matters regarding Qingyan. It was because he understood that as long as it was something to do with Lady Qingyan, the Young Manor Master would never get angry. Mu Ling lowered his gaze to hide the chill in his eyes. "What about Suyi? Back then? Did you see Suyi?" Han Feng looked as if he was suppressing a smile. "Regarding this matter, Lady Qingyan had always disallowed me to inform Young Manor Master. In the beginning, I had followed behind Young Manor Master alone. I could only bring back one person with my strength alone. Furthermore, I did not dare to touch Lady Suyi. Lady Qingyan's body was also weak, and she was more so unable to pick up Lady Suyi. So," he paused for a moment before continuing, "so, I brought Young Manor Master back and let Lady Qingyan stay back to take care of Lady Suyi. I had intended to ask a servant girl to bring Lady Suyi back later on. However, when I had arrived with Young Manor Master at the Mu family, I found out that Lady Qingyan had already returned. Furthermore, she was also injured." Mu Ling was quiet, waiting for Han Feng to continue speaking. The person who had hurt Lady Qingyan was Lady Suyi's good friend. Lady Suyi was brought away by him. Lady Qingyan was worried that it would cause conflict between young Manor Master and Lady Sui, so she had instructed me to hold my tongue. I have seen how young Manor Master is treating Lady Qingyan and am no longer able to bear it. Thus, I have spoken a little more today. Chapter 1161. It turns out that he was a fool through and through. Young Manor Master. Startled, Han Feng stared at Mu Ling in bewilderment. He had finally noticed that Mu Ling's face had taken on a ghastly expression. Suddenly, Mu Ling broke into laughter. He laughed louder and finally, his laughter turned into a boisterous laugh. Tears started to run down his face. It's true, everything that Mu Qi has said is true. Sui's old flame. That's total nonsense. The man who had taken Sui away was Hai Rong. If what Chen Qingyan had said was true, Hai Rong was Sui's old flame and had hurt her because he wanted to take Sui away. Hai Rong would never forget Chen Qingyan even after so many years. Apparently, the fact was that Chen Qingyan had left Sui alone and gone home on her own. She had even made up such a ridiculous story. If Hai Rong had not saved Sui, Sui would have died. Even if she did not die from the severe injuries she had obtained, she would have been eaten by the spirit beasts. However, what had Mu Ling done when Sui had made her way back to the Mu family after going through so many struggles? He had paid no heed to Sui's explanation and made Chen Qingyan his concubine before everyone's eyes. It was natural that Sui was so dejected, haha. Mu Ling laughed harder and harder. His laughter echoed in the air for a long while. It turned out that Mu Ling was a fool through and through. Over the past year, even if Mu Ling was aware of Chen Qingyan's wrongdoings, he had always forgiven her. It was all because Chen Qingyan had saved him 20 years ago. She had risked her own life by protecting him with her frail body, bold and resolute, without any reservation. Because of this, Mu Ling had defended and trusted Chen Qingyan for so many years. It was only now he realized how badly he failed Sui by trusting such a vicious lady. Young Manor Master, what happened to you? Han Feng was dumbstruck by Mu Ling's reaction. He simply did not know what had made Mu Ling lose his mind. Disregarded Han Feng, Mu Ling stumbled toward the courtyard. It was scorching hot, but Mu Ling could feel a freezing cold wind swept by. It was bone-piercing cold. At this moment, Mu Ling simply had nothing in his mind. All he wanted to do was to meet Sui, even if Sui did not want to see him again. Sure enough, just as Mu Ling reached the courtyard, the old butler stopped him. Me for extra chapters. Young Manor Master, why are you here again? This is not the first time you are here today. Please go back. Young Lady Sui doesn't want to see you. The old butler was slightly annoyed. I want to meet Sui, I want to meet her. Mu Lin said in a choking and brittle voice. Sui, come out. Come out now. I have something to tell you. I'm wrong, I know that I have been really wrong. Please. Come out and meet me, please. Sorry. I am really sorry. I should have trusted you. I shouldn't have wronged you and broken your heart by taking a concubine. Please. Sui, I beg you to meet me, as long as you come out, even just for a second, it will be enough. Mu Ling fell to his knees, groaning in agony. His face was wet with tears. Dead silence filled the atmosphere. In the past, Mu Ling would never have given up. He would come again the very next day. But now, his heart was overflowing with agony and panic. Perhaps, he knew that both he and Sui could never get back together. At this time, a slender silhouette got in the way and blocked the sunlight before Mu Ling. Chapter 1162. It turns out that he was a fool through and through. 6 Delighted, Mu Ling raised his head only to see a delicate face. All the excitement in his heart vanished in an instant. Brother Ling, Chen Qingyan crouched down. Her long and slender hand held Mu Ling's hand gently. All of a sudden, Mu Ling's face changed. He shook off Chen Qingyan's hand and sent her stumbling back. Get lost. Leave me alone. I just want to see Sui. You get out of my sight now. Chen Qingyan stumbled back and fell to the ground. She looked up at Mu Ling in bewilderment. A look of disbelief and shock crept into her face. Didn't Brother Ling already forgive me? Why is he doing this to me? The old butler could not help raising his brows. It seemed that he had no idea what was happening. Back then, no matter how many mistakes Chen Qingyan had made, Mu Ling never did lose his mind like this. What had Chen Qingyan done this time? It seemed that something interesting was brewing. Sui, please come out. Please come and meet me. Mu Ling did not even spare a glance at Chen Qingyan. He walked forward, trembling. I've finally realized who loves me the most. Sui, I'm wrong. I am begging you, please come and meet me. The old butler raised his arm to stop Mu Ling. Mu Ling did not dare to offend the old butler. He could not help but stop walking forward. His face was filled with agonized despair as tears broke free from his eyes. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I just want to apologize to you. Sui, I am begging you, please come and meet me. At this moment, Chen Qingyan got onto her feet. Her face was drained of color, her lips were trembling. Perhaps, Chen Qingyan too was enraged. She clenched her fists tightly as her nails dug deep into her palms. However, thinking of her plan, she bit back her anger and walked toward Mu Ling with light and springy steps. Brother Ling, Sister Sui is just upset. She is not petty-minded. Let's go back. Chen Qingyan stretched her arm out, wanting to hold on to Mu Ling's. Slap. A crisp, clear slap sounded. Me for extra chapters. Mu Ling raised his hand and slapped Chen Qingyan across her face. Her face became swollen and red. A trace of blood could be seen at the corner of her lips. She stared dazedly at Mu Ling, who was still burning with rage. You slut! You have deceived me so horribly, is that not enough? You are even insulting Sui now, saying that she is petty-minded. Even if she was petty-minded, she is not as vicious as you. Get lost. I will deal with you later. I want to meet Sui now, not you. When all the old scores were written off, Mu Ling would never see Chen Qingyan again. Enraged, Mu Ling pointed at Chen Qingyan. A glimmer of red light flashed in his eyes, bloodthirsty and ruthless like a lion exploding with fury and wanting to tear Chen Qingyan into pieces. Chen Qingyan's mind went completely blank. She looked dazedly at Mu Ling. She had even forgotten how to cry. Brother Ling, is there some misunderstanding between us? Get lost. Mu Ling pushed Chen Qingyan away forcefully, sending her stumbling backward, and falling to the ground once again. Her hand knocked down a flower pot nearby. She sucked in a breath of cold air in pain and gasped for air. She balled her hands into fists. Chen Qingyan turned her head around to look at Mu Ling. Brother Ling, there must be a reason you are mad at me. I have always been behaving myself. I have never done anything wrong or harmed anyone. The incidents where the old master got poisoned and the depletion of spirit herbs were out of my hands. I was tricked. You have forgiven me back then. Why? Chapter 1163, A Resolute Denial. Do you really want to know why? Mu Ling sneered as he approached Chen Qingyan slowly. Do you still remember the incident that happened 20 years ago when the people of the Mu family chased after us and wanted to kill us? You told me that you saved my life by risking yours. Tell me, who had actually risked her life to save mine? Brother Ling, I don't get you. Did someone tell you something? You promised that you will always believe me no matter what happens. Have you forgotten your promise? Chen Qingjian's face changed slightly. She pursed her lips together. Mu Ling closed his eyes in agony. He had trusted Chen Qingyan so much and had taken his promise so seriously that he had hurt the lady who loved him most in his entire life. Slowly, he opened his eyes. His eyes arced in irony. I met Mu Qi from the Mu family. Shuddering, Chen Qingyan clenched her fists tightly. Brother Ling, you believe him? Of course not. I met Hai Rong after that. He told me that he took Siyi back from the place where we were faced with danger back then. He saw Siyi lying in a pool of blood, all alone. No one was by her side. Chen Qingyan, do you know what it means? If not for Hai Rong, Siyi might have been killed by spirit beasts. Mu Ling's bloodshot eyes filled up with fury as they locked onto Chen Qingyan. He was searching for an answer from Chen Qingjian's face. Chen Qingyan quickly regained her composure, the corner of her lips curved into a sinister smile. It turns out that you have never trusted me. You would rather believe in Mu Qi and Hai Rong. Hai Rong is so close to Sister Suyi. Do you think he would tell you the truth? Mu Ling had never thought that Chen Qingyan would still lie to him at this point in time. The grief and anger on his face grew even more obvious. Naturally, I will not trust Hai Rong completely. Hence, I checked with Han Feng when I got home. He told me that Suyi was there back then. As he was not capable of bringing Suyi back, he asked you to look after her. However, you had actually returned home on your own. You have even told him that Suyi was taken away by her old flame. Ha! Do you remember what you told me when I came to you? You said that Suyi ran away when I was in danger. It was you who had protected me alone. Tell me now, why Suyi was there too? Why? As if engulfed in endless agony, Mu Ling shouted at the top of his lungs. It was so painful that he wanted to strangle the lady before him. Chen Qingjian's body stiffened. Brother Ling, everything I did for you, why don't you trust me? Do you really want me to tell you that Sister Suyi had an affair with another man? It was a month long. Do you really think that nothing happened between her and the man who took her away? Slap. Mu Ling raised his hand and gave Chen Qingyan a tight slap across her face. Me for extra chapters. This time, his slap was harder than before. Chen Qingyan could only feel the pain on her cheek, she could not even feel that her heart was ripped apart. That's total nonsense. You must be out of your mind. Hai Rong was the one who took Suyi away. Do you know how old Hai Rong is? That's impossible. If Hai Rong were Suyi's old flame, why did Hai Rong know nothing about Suyi? Mu Ling sneered. Chen Qingyan had truly lost her mind just to slander Suyi and get herself out of trouble. Suddenly, the things that Suyi had said came into Mu Ling's mind. He walked up to Chen Qingyan and grabbed her by her lapel. Back then, a servant had nearly killed Nan Xian. Are you the mastermind behind that? Chapter 1164, A Pervert Who is Hunted by Tianya I. Chen Qingjian's face drained of color, her breathing grew shallow. She looked up at the man before her as despair and agony engulfed her. You don't trust me, you have never trusted me. Suddenly, Chen Qingyan broke into laughter. She looked pathetic with tears flooding her eyes. Everything that I have done for you. Why don't you trust me? Perhaps Mu Ling had never thought that at this point in time, Chen Qingyan would still say that everything she had done was for Mu Ling's sake. For Mu Ling's sake, Chen Qingyan had taken away Suyi's credit and maligned Suyi by telling everyone that she had an affair with someone else. For Mu Ling's sake, Chen Qingyan had taken away so many spirit herbs and had nearly killed the old master. For Mu Ling's sake, Chen Qingyan pretended to commit suicide to seek sympathy. Everything that Chen Qingyan had done, she did for Mu Ling. What a load of nonsense. Mu Ling let out a boisterous laugh that filled the sky. Exploding with fury, Mu Ling grabbed Chen Qingyan's neck with one hand, veins could be seen popping out in his temples. If you had admitted it from the beginning when I asked you, perhaps I would have trusted you. However, you admitted that Suyi was the one who saved me only when I told you the things that Han Feng said. Chen Qingyan, how could I trust you? Chen Qingyan's face turned red, her eyes overflowed with panic. She could feel that Mu Ling really wanted to kill her this time. In a distance not far away, Mu Shit saw Mu Ling strangle Chen Qingyan. His gentle face changed. However, he did not step forward to interfere and merely stared at them. He then quickly turned to leave. A vintage manor located in a deserted suburb. Mu Huan was sitting calmly, leaning against the headboard of the bed, stroking her belly. The corners of her lips curved into a faint smile. Me for extra chapters. Her belly was not as flat as it was before, a bump had started to show, for there was a life lying within her pregnant belly. Mu Huan raised her head only to see Mu Shi bursting in from outside. She frowned as she asked, "Why are you here? I told you not to come to me if it is not necessary." In fact, Mu Huan was really unfortunate. She had listened to Chen Qingyan and threw herself at an officer. It was a twist of fate that this officer already had a beauty with him then. Once he had someone, he would not fall for another lady. Mu Huan had been waiting for nearly a year when this officer finally grew tired of that lady, only then she seized the opening and came to where she was today. She had even gotten pregnant in just a few months. Mu Huan, something is wrong. Father wants to kill mother. I am not sure what Nan Sui has told him. He seemed to have slandered mother. He wants to strangle mother to death. Only you can save her now. Mu Zai's face took on a ghastly expression. The teacup in Mu Huan's hand fell to the ground. All of a sudden, Mu Huan got to her feet, her eyes were burning with anger. What did you just say? Nan Sui was such a slut. Not only did she seduce Mu Ling, but she had also torn Mu Ling and Chen Qingyan apart. If not for Nan Sui, Chen Qingyan would not lose dominance in the Mu family. Mu Huan would not have to sacrifice her happiness and throw herself at a man whom she did not love. It was all Nan Sui and Nan Xian's fault. Not to mention the slut, Feng Ruqing. They had stolen everything from Mu Huan, she would never let them go so easily. Mu Huan, do something. Otherwise, it would be too late. Chapter 1165, A pervert who is hunted by Tianya. Mu Zai's eyes turned gloomy, flickering with a vicious light. Nan Sui would not hesitate to do anything she wants. Mu Huan clenched her fists tightly and turned to look at the quiet backyard. A cold light flashed in her eyes. You may take your leave now. Don't let father kill mother. I am going to meet Lord Jia Axian. He won't turn his back on me. In the past few months, Mu Huan had exhausted all her efforts to make herself irresistible to Jia Axian. It was just a small request. Perhaps, Jia Axian would agree to it. As compared to Mu Shi, who had always been paranoid, Mu Huan was indeed a great daughter. Without a second thought, she rushed toward the backyard. Many ladies could be seen in the backyard of the Jia family. Jia Axian was a lustful womanizer. However, he would only fall for one lady at a time. He would never lay a finger on any other lady once he had one by his side. Even if the lady was his concubine, he would never spare a glance at her. Hence, the backyard like a cold palace, dull and lonely. As soon as Mu Huan stepped into the backyard, a voluptuous lady stopped her. She was the lady Jia Axian fell for 1 year ago and had kept Mu Huan waiting for nearly a year. Get out of my way. Mu Huan said coldly, her face darkened. Mu Huan, who are you going to show your cold and aloof face? If you are really as aloof as how you look, why did you throw yourself at a man? The voluptuous lady got in the way, her lips curved into a sneer. Lord Jia Axian likes me. He likes someone like me. Mu Huan's cold gaze was locked on the voluptuous lady. Ha! The voluptuous lady covered her mouth as she chuckled softly. That's too early to tell. Do you truly think Lord Jia Axian will love you for the rest of his life? When he gets tired of you, you will be one of us, part of this cold palace. Ha! The voluptuous lady let out a boisterous laugh and walked past Mu Huan. She did not even look at Mu Huan again. Currently, besides the voluptuous woman who walked past Mu Huan, all the ladies in the backyard were staring at Mu Huan as if they wanted to tear her into pieces. Disregarding these ladies, Mu Huan walked slowly toward the study and pushed open the door softly. The sunlight poured into the study onto a man in a green robe. Me for extra chapters. The man was so devastatingly handsome, gentle, and was extremely precious in the Tianshan manner. It was natural that these ladies were willing to stay in this cold palace rather than leave him. Lord Jia. Somehow, even when Mu Huan was meeting the man who loved her dearly, she felt an unreasonable feeling of fear. Perhaps, this man was too strong or, he was simply too ruthless. Hence, Mu Huan did not dare to make any request from Jia Axian and only indulged herself in his affection. Even if Qin Qingyan told Mu Huan over and over again that Jia Axian treated ladies extremely well, that he had never rejected a lattice request, Mu Huan had never asked Jia Axian any favors. If Mu Ling was out of his mind and was trying to kill Qin Qingyan, Mu Huan would never have asked for Jia Xin's favor at this time. Huaner, you are here. Sit down. Jia Axian smiled faintly. Lord Jia, something happened to my mother. Is it something about the spectral flower? Jia Xin's face was calm. It's because of you that I didn't blame your mother for not taking care of my spectral flower. Don't worry, we can get a new place to sow these spectral flowers. Chapter 1166, A Pervert Who is Hunted by Tianya. I startled. Mu Huan bit the bullet and kneeled before Jia Axian as tears broke free from her eyes. Lord Jia Axian, please save my mother. Your mother? What happened to Qin Qingyan? Jia Axian reached out and gently helped Mu Huan up. This lady is such a troublemaker. Lord Jia Axian, my parents have always been a loving couple. However, someone keeps wanting to tear them apart. I have no idea what she has told my father. He has lost his senses and wants to kill my mother. Moreover, Mu Huan cried pathetically. The manor of the Lord Mayor has always been the leading clan of Heavenly City. The people out there have always wanted to put me, my mother, and my siblings into trouble. Lord Jia Axian, if I can't stop this, I don't want to live anymore. Seeing such a beautiful lady crying, Jia Xin's heart was broken. Regardless of whether Mu Huan was telling the truth or not, since Mu Huan was Jia Xin's woman, he would never turn his back on her. 10 years have passed and I am well nigh recovered. Huaner, I will assign some people for you to handle this and I will deal with this later. After all, it's time for Tianshan Manor to change its ruler. Hearing this, Mu Huan was overjoyed. She had never thought that Jia Axian would agree to help her so easily. Her cold heart slowly melted. Thank you, Lord Jia Axian. You may go out now. Jia Axian smiled as he said. As Mu Huan was worried about Qin Qingyan, she did not stay any longer and turned to leave the study. Only after Mu Huan left, Jia Xin's calm face changed. His face beamed with rapturous delight. After pretending to be calm and composed for quite a while, he could finally show his true color. The feeling was so great it was like holding in a fart for quite a while and then letting it out all of a sudden. All these years, besides Shen Qingyan, countless powerful warriors of the other clans had bowed down to him. Not to mention that there was no lack of pretty ladies throwing themselves on him. Naturally, he had never thought that he could arrive at this point. Jia Axian felt so great that he wanted to moan out loud. He had been badly treated in that place. Even an old lady would not spare a glance at him, let alone the beautiful young ladies. After that, he had fled. Me for extra chapters. He had done everything that he could and had gone through so many struggles. He had finally fled from the cage that no one had ever broken through and arrived at Sangyu mainland. He had lost all his strength after stepping into this place. Fortunately, he had found the seed of spectral flower and had subdued these flowers so they could provide him with spiritual qi after absorbing them from the others. That was the reason Jia Axian could make a breakthrough at such great speed. Although he had not returned to his peak, with his current strength, he was capable of gaining a foothold in Sangyu mainland. Previously, in that place, Jia Axian could hardly get a wife. Now, he was surrounded by countless beautiful ladies. When he got tired of them, he would dump them and never lay a finger on them ever again. Tianya, you bastard. I have slept with your cat as someone had spiked my drink. I did not intend to do that. How could you be so ruthless to me? Not only did you pursue me for 10 whole years, you told all the ladies that I have slept with your cat. All the ladies are now afraid of me and even an old lady does not even spare a glance at me. The past 10 years have been a nightmare for Jia Axian. He did not want to meet Tianya again for the rest of his life. If Tianya had not pushed him into a corner, he would not have resorted to such a self-destructive way to leave that place. It was such a sad story indeed. Chapter 1167, The Lady, Chocho in Tianyu Kingdom. Resting her chin in her hands, Gui's big eyes looked up to the sky as she let out a sigh. She could hardly remember how many times she had sighed today. It's been so many days, when will Xiaoqing be back? At this moment, a slender silhouette stood behind Gui and blocking the scorching sunlight with his hand. Gui turned her head around. A handsome face came into sight. She got up delightedly. Second uncle, are you getting better? I feel better now. Mu Qingyin smiled faintly. Sienna and Ruqing will be back soon. You could just wait for them in the chamber. It's been quite some time since she has left. I am not sure if Xiaoqing has found that vixen. Although I don't like him, I just can't put my mind at ease because Xiaoqing is worried about him. Gui was a little dejected. Perhaps Gui was the only one who would care for her love rival, a love rival who had taken every inch of Feng Ruqing's love. Thinking of this, Gui suddenly felt that she was such a great lady. She could not help but break into a smile. Second uncle, I am so worried about that vixen, Nanxian. Do you think that vixen would feel touched and allow me to step into Xiaoqing's harem if he knows this? Mu Qingyin was rendered speechless. Do you think it's appropriate to call my nephew a vixen? Also, are you really worried about Nanxian? Apparently, you have been too bored after Ruqing left and have been wandering around idly. Naturally, Mu Qingyin would not say this out loud. With a faint smile on his face, Mu Qingyin responded, no. Gui's face stiffened as she stomped her feet indignantly. A familiar voice sounded. Gui turned her head around only to see Princess Yulan rushing toward her. I heard that Maiden Feng is back. Before Yulan could spit out the last word, Gui was already rushing out like a gust of wind, vanishing without a trace. Standing rooted on the spot, Yulan stared dazedly at Gui who moved faster than the wind and could not regain her sense even after a long while. Before an exquisitely luxurious palace located in Tianyu Kingdom. Gui burst through the palace gate. At a glance, she spotted a lady who was standing under the sun. She smiled like a blooming flower. "Shao, me for extra chapters." Before Gui could finish her word, two silhouettes rushed past her and pounced on Feng-ruching. It was a dog and a lady. The dog was the only Tier 7 snow wolf that Feng-ruching had subdued, while the lady was the spirit herb that turned into its human form that Feng-ruching had brought back from the Yu family, a spirit herb that had caused the fall of the entire Yu family. Howl! Wagging its tail, the snow wolf pounced on Feng-ruching and licked her face gently. It looked so adorable and credulous. Qiu took a glance at the snow wolf, and seeing the corner of Feng-ruching's lips curved into a smile, she pondered for a while and then stuck out her tongue, just like the snow wolf. It was a pity that she was not as lucky as the snow wolf. Before Qiu could reach Feng-ruching, an arm stretched out from the side and pulled Feng-ruching close into his arms. The lady and the snow wolf ended up licking each other's faces. Chapter 1168, The Lady, Qiu too. Both the snow wolf and Qiu were dumbstruck by Nan Xian's reaction. Gui exploded with rage. It was fine for the dog to lick Shao Qing's face. However, Qiu was human. How could she lick Shao Qing's face like a dog? Qiu truly paid no heed to Gui, Feng-ruching's principal wife. In Gui's eyes, sure enough, Nan Xian was Feng-ruching's betrothed. However, of all the ladies in Feng-ruching's harem, Shao Yin and Gui were Feng-ruching's principal wives. How dare Qiu, a newcomer, try to win Feng-ruching's heart? Qing'er, it's fine if she is just a spirit herb. However, she has turned into a human form now. You must stay away from her. Nan Xian stared at Qiu nonchalantly. Why? Feng-ruching turned her head around in bewilderment. Because she will get married one day and you will ruin her marriage, Nan Xian said calmly. The snow wolf was just a spirit beast and would never turn into human form. Hence, Nan Xian did not stop it from getting close to Feng-ruching. Most importantly, the snow wolf was a male spirit beast. On the other hand, Qiu was a definite no-no. Qiu had turned into human form and Feng-ruching was irresistible to beautiful ladies. Unlike a man, Feng-ruching treated ladies so differently. Hence, Nan Xian must stay guarded against Qiu. Lost in wonder, Qiu did not understand Nan Xian. Why can the big doggy lick master but not me? She pouted as she stared at Feng-ruching tearfully. Seeing Qiu so dejected, Feng-ruching's heart softened. That's totally fine. There is no difference between Qiu and this dog. Perhaps she is not as smart as this dog. When one was told that her wit was no better than a dog, she would have exploded with anger. However, it was totally fine for Qiu as everything that Feng-ruching said was right. As she is simple-minded, she knows nothing about the feelings between men and ladies. She would have thought that it was normal for a lady to develop feelings toward another lady. Don't you think it will ruin her marriage? Nan Xian reached out to stroke Feng-ruching's hair. His handsome face was full of gentleness. Stunned, Feng-ruching felt that Nan Xian had a point. Hence, she looked solemnly at Qiu. Qiu, you must not learn from the little doggy, me for extra chapters. All right. Qiu pouted as she responded aggrievedly. Qiu was very obedient. If her master told her not to do something, she would follow. Can I hug you like Sister Qinghan? No. Since the state preceptor doesn't allow you to do so, then you must not do it. Qiu, you are a big girl now. You must know the do's and don'ts of being a lady. Feng-ruching sighed as she said earnestly. Qiu was still lost in wonder. However, she trusted Feng-ruching. After all, she was different from Qinghan. Unlike Qinghan, Qiu had grown up. She should not cling to her master anymore. Nan Xian, let's go and meet second uncle. Because of Yi, second uncle is here and has suffered some serious injuries. Perhaps, the old master and manor master Gus' dream is coming true. Feng Ruqing's eyes sparkled with joy. Watching Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian leaving, Guiyi rolled her eyes and walked up to Qiu slowly as she smirked. Lady, don't trust that vixen, Nan Xian. He is chasing us away to secure his own status. Why? All men are evil. Originally, I knew nothing about this. It was Xiao Yin who has taught me about all these. True love knows no gender. There is always true love even among the same gender. Guiyi patted Qiu on her shoulder. However, the vixen Nan Xian will never let you get close to Feng Ruqing. I have learned from my father that if you want to stay with her forever, be her king. With your current relationship with Xiao Qing, it's not enough. Chapter 1169, The Lady, Qiu listened carefully to Guiyi's words. Second uncle is mine. I will be Nan Xian's second aunt in the future. Unfortunately, there is no other eligible bachelor around Xiao Qing. Guiyi frowned and sank into contemplation. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Sure enough, you could never be Xiao Qing's lady. However, the old master has not taken a second wife. You could be Feng Ruqing's grandmother. Nan Xian will address you as his grandmother. That is so awesome. Ha! What is a grandmother? Qiu asked in bewilderment. A grandmother is, Guiyi. A depressing voice sounded behind Guiyi. Stunned, Guiyi's body stiffened. She turned her head around stiffly only to see Mu Qingyin was standing not far away. Second uncle, did Xiao Qing and Vixen not look for you just now? Why are you still here? Well, I have not just tried to get you a stepmother. I haven't. The corner of Guiyi's lips twitched. I heard everything that you have just said. Don't put this lady into trouble. Don't you know how old my father is? He is not even capable of going to bed with someone anymore. Do you want to ruin this lad's life by telling her to marry my father? This lady looked so gullible and unworldly. She might believe in everything that Guiyi said. If she really listened to Guiyi, her entire life would be ruined. Second uncle, don't worry. I will tell the old master everything that you have just said. Guiyi broke into a bright smile. Her eyes were more dazzling than the starry sky. I am just telling the truth. A faint smile plastered on Mu Qingjian's cold and stunning face. Qiu had finally regained her senses. Her gaze swept past Guiyi and was fixed upon Mu Qingyin. She seemed a little indignant. I am not a fool. I won't trust her. I only trust my master. Qiu would only trust one person in her life, just like the way she trusted the Yu family. Currently, she trusted no one but Feng Ruqing. Second uncle, when are we leaving here? I used to think that my father was annoying back then, but after leaving home for more than a year, I miss him. Suddenly, Guiyi felt a little dejected. Perhaps it was true that children always found their parents annoying when they were around and would miss them badly when they were separated for a long while. This was the first time Guiyi had left home for such a long while. Me for extra chapters. Mu Qingjian's eyes darkened. There is a place not far from Tianyu Kingdom that might have connection with the world outside. However, I cannot break the barrier with my current strength. Let me discuss this with Nan Xian and the rest later. We will leave this place no matter what. Qiu stared at Mu Qingyin and Guiyi. She bit her lower lip a little, lowered her head, and did not say anything. Master and the rest want to leave this place. Will Master leave me behind? Will I go back to square one and live on my own again? When one got used to being on her own, loneliness was not a big deal. However, having once had the feeling of warmth, being alone no longer held any appeal. It would be so great if enriching could stay here forever. Simply no one noticed that Kyuki's face had changed. No one ever paid attention to her, let alone notice her pensive look. What? Enriching was distracted just now, and Kyuki's voice was so soft that she could barely hear the last words from her. The young girl's face broke into a smile brighter than sunshine. Master, if I couldn't leave this place, would you still leave me? There was no walking away from this world. Especially herself. But her master did not belong in this place. If she wanted to leave, there would be a way out eventually. But she did not want to let her master go. She wanted her master to stay and be with her for the rest of her life. Chapter 1171, A Prelude to War 2-inch Chocho. Enriching smiled softly as she touched the young girl's head. I must leave this place. My family and friends are waiting for me. The young girl held her hands tightly, breathing hard. She still wanted to leave this place. After all, she would end up being the one who was left behind. The countless years of loneliness had struck fear in her heart. She was like a child who was lost in a thick fog. It was not easy for someone to come and pull her out, so she had never wanted to let her go. Unfortunately, she was being left behind to be alone again. But, don't worry. Enriching smiled widely. I will get you out of this world by any means. But now I have to go back first to settle some things. I can't stay here longer. Chocho, trust me. I'll be back for you to get you out of this world. She had been here for a year, and she did not know whether Muling was still bullying Sui or not. She was worried, so she must leave this place. Only after everything in the Mu family had settled, she would then be able to come back again peacefully. In truth, Enriching did not know why she would feel so affectionate toward this beautiful young girl either. At first, she thought it was all because of Kyuki's power that had made her attracted to her. But now, she finally understood that she truly loved her. Maybe. Chocho and Ching Han were alike, both were spirit herbs, and she naturally had a soft spot for these lovely spirit herbs. Really? All the disappointment and hatred in the girl's eyes immediately disappeared. She lifted her head. Her eyes were bright and brilliant, and her smile was like a blooming flower. Will you come back and take me with you? Yes. I'll be back. Enriching's gaze was so firm, to the point that it caused Kyuki's grief to fade away completely. She would never abandon her. Her master had something to do. She just had to go away for a while, and she would come back to get her out of here. That was enough, she was no longer alone in this world. Well, I trust you. I don't believe anyone else. Except you. I wanted to follow you from the first moment we met me for extra chapters. Why? I don't know. You have always made me feel warm, and I like you a lot. Since the first encounter at the Yu family's basement, she was destined to live for her. Nothing would change, till death do them apart. It's getting late. You should rest first, Enriching said, touching Kyuki's head. Chocho rubbed her head against Enriching's hand like a lazy cat, and she seemed to be enjoying it. Cough. Suddenly, a light cough sounded from behind Enriching. Enriching turned around and saw Nan Xian and Mu Qingyin standing behind her. She suddenly froze and looked down at the young girl nestled in her arms before she lifted her head to look at Nan Xian. Once she met Nan Xian's gaze, she surprisingly had a feeling of being caught red-handed. Would you believe me if I say I did nothing and that I'm definitely innocent? Chocho was speechless. She looked at Feng Ruching, whose eyes were fixed upon Nan Xian. She then looked at her own dirty dress and burst out crying in an extremely distressing way. Chapter 1172. A Prelude to War 3. Feng Ruching was usually fond of women, but once she had met Nan Xian, she would not even glance at those pitiful young girls because her eyes were only on him. Nan Xian's face remained cold, but he was quietly relieved. Although Qing'er did not yet learn how to stay away from women, she had at least improved a little. Unlike before, when she had even hugged them in front of him. But now, she even knew how to explain it to him. Second uncle and I have chatted a while ago, and now I came to call you to sleep. It's too hot here, let's go back to the house and sleep peacefully. Nan Xian deliberately emphasized the word sleep as he coldly glanced at Qiuqiu, who had fallen to the ground. He wrapped his arm around Feng Ruching's waist and gave her a gentle smile. All right. Feng Ruching did not look at Qiuqiu again. Earlier, she was so fond of her. But now, she only had this wild man in her eyes and mind. Qiuqiu sniffed angrily. Master just said that she could not part with her, but in the blink of an eye, she had abandoned her. A moment ago, she was comforting her like a kitten, but in the next moment, she had thrown the young girl to the ground mercilessly. Sure enough, women were such liars. Mu Qingyin smiled helplessly as he stared straight at Nan Xian and Feng Ruching's departing figure. Other people's love rivals were men, but his nephew had to compete with women for her attention. The night was silent. Feng Ruching followed Nan Xian into the room. Her eyes fell upon the man's handsome face. Her gaze slowly traveled down his neck. Then she stepped forward and ripped off his robe. The man's face was so handsome, as if that look could make everything in the world lose its color. And his perfect figure was filled with a seductive charm. Qing'er, Nan Xian lifted his hand and ran his fingers through the young girl's hair. He smiled gently and said, "If you want to sleep with me, you can just tell me. You don't have to seduce me like this on purpose." Feng Ruching was speechless. This guy was seducing her, so how did it turn around to her seducing him? Your hand. You touched me just now. Did I? I just want to help you undress. Your nails were touching me for extra chapters. Feng Ruching was speechless again. So, Nan Xian slowly stepped forward, pulling Feng Ruching into his arms. His stunning face lit up with a faint smile. Let's sleep. This time, what Nan Xian had said about sleeping obviously meant sleeping with him. The bed linen floated around with the wind as it danced softly in the air inside the room, but still, it could not hide the two figures on the bed. The next morning, Feng Ruching had just walked out of the room as she saw some spirit beasts led by the wolfhound were looking at her impatiently under the shining sun. These spirit beasts knew that she was about to leave and their eyes were full of disappointment, but they insisted on coming here to see her off. Feng Ruching's heart felt like it had been hit as her eyes swept over those familiar spirit beasts one by one and finally stopped at the big rabbit. Chi Chi. The big rabbit jumped up and hopped up to Feng Ruching's side. It thought for a while before it took out a piece of ginseng from its arms and handed it to Feng Ruching with a heavy heart. Ginseng was not very important to Feng Ruching, but it was the big rabbit's favorite food, so she had kept it anyway. The wolfhound also wanted to give something to her. After searching for a long time, it finally found a stick of bone that it had hidden for itself to give to Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching was speechless. She stared at the servile look on the wolfhound's face and put the stick of bone away. Chapter 1173. A Prelude to War IV. The wolfhound was very excited when it saw that Feng Ruching liked that big bone. To surpass the big rabbit, it took out a piece of feces that it had privately stashed away and offered it to Feng Ruching. That was the feces of a phoenix that it had accidentally found a few years ago and had been hiding, reluctant to eat it. Now it wanted to give its beloved treasure to the woman that it loved the most. Master will love it. The wolfhound was waiting for a compliment, but what would come to it was a blow on its head. Enriching nonchalantly took the stick of bone given by the wolfhound and knocked it on its head. Take this piece of feces and get out of here. This dog has gone overboard. The stick of bone at least could be used to hit people, but this piece of feces. How was she supposed to take it? Howl. The wolfhound howled miserably and rolled aside while rubbing its small head. It stared at Enriching with glistening eyes. The higher tier spirit beasts have tastier feces, so why doesn't Master like it? That was how it had survived when it was hungry back then. Is it because Master feels sorry about it that has made her reluctant to take that piece of feces? The more it thought about it, the more it made sense. The wolfhound raised its head. Master, Enriching also lifted the stick of bone on her hand. The wolfhound suddenly trembled. It lowered its head to the ground, wagging its tail pathetically, but did not dare to speak again. This time, I'm leaving. Enriching stared at the spirit beasts that had accompanied her for a long time before she began speaking. All the spirit beasts raised their heads and looked straight at Enriching. Little doggy has already reached tier 7, and I have left some spirit herbs for you guys. So, it is enough for all of you to break through to a few more higher tiers. With your strength now, nobody will dare bully you anymore. The beasts stood around in silence. Before this, they just wanted to stop being bullied, but now, all they wanted was to follow her. But she would leave eventually and no one could stop her. I'll come back. It's just that I don't know how long it will before that happens. Enriching smiled. I promise that after I've settled everything there, I'll come back to you and find a way to take all of you with me. Howl. The voice was tinged with reluctance, like soldiers sending their leader off. Me for extra chapters. State Preceptor, let's go. Enriching did not look at these spirit beasts again. She was afraid that she would miss them even more if she did. Humans and spirit beasts were both emotional. At first, they would unite for their own purposes, but once they had spent more time together, they would eventually care for each other. Howl. Chee-chee. Roar. Numerous spirit beasts stood behind Enriching. They let out a barking sound that carried 1,000 feelings, seemingly responding to her words. They would wait for her no matter how long it took. The mainland consisted of 8 powerful kingdoms. Besides Haitian Kingdom and Tianhua Kingdom, which had been destroyed, there were 6 other kingdoms in this mainland. And among these kingdoms, Tianhua Kingdom was at the bottom of the list. It was said that there were countless skilled masters from other kingdoms. Chapter 1174, A Prelude to War. Here was Yang Xian Hall in Xianyuan Kingdom, the leader of the 8 kingdoms. An elder in bright yellow sat upright, surrounded by the emperors of the other 5 kingdoms. Compared to Tsangyu mainland, all the emperors from the 8 kingdoms, except for Haitian Kingdom, which had always been isolated from the world, wore the same pants. The 8 kingdoms' emperors came from one ancestor. The kingdoms were established after the ancestor was thrown into the reclusive world because of a mistake that he had made. And the ancestor of the spirit beasts was sent by a strong master to keep an eye on them. Of course, the 8 kingdoms' emperors were unaware of these things. It was the emperor from Haitian Kingdom who had found this information in the mausoleum of the 9th emperor. The strong master was the 9th emperor back then. Their ancestor was the prisoner who had offended the 9th emperor. Someone else might hate the 9th emperor if they had read the diary, but the people of Haitian Kingdom were different after all. The 9th emperor was the god who had created this world, and they were madly in love with her. They not only treated the spirit beasts as their partners but also worshipped the 9th emperor as their ancestor. As for their ancestor, who was thrown away as a punishment for his crime. The Emperor of Haitian Kingdom had long forgotten him because of his weakness. He only revered the strong master. The weak one did not deserve to be given special treatment by him, even if that person was his ancestor. This Haitian Kingdom's emperor was so pathetic. He worshipped the ninth emperor, learned all about her, and had even forgotten the man pictured in the ninth emperor's diary. In the end, he had offended the reincarnation of the ninth emperor so much so that his spirit was dispersed. Perhaps this was his fate and the price he had to pay for his folly. Not long ago, the scout I have sent reported that the girl who drove the Emperor of Tianhua Kingdom away and killed the Emperor's father has returned. But it seems that she is gone to the Forbidden Mountain. Emperor Xian Yuan's face was cold, expressionless. Forbidden Mountain. Isn't that a forbidden place in this mainland? I heard that there is a seal in the outside world. Many of us have tried to break it, but anyone who wanted to leave Fangzhou mainland would end up dead or badly wounded. Indeed, this mainland was called Fangzhou mainland. Even though the emperors had not seen the ninth emperor's mausoleum and did not know what had happened, they were all clear that they had been expelled to this mainland. Me for extra chapters. Chapter 1175. A prelude to War 6-inch. He had thrown out the silly one from Tianhua Kingdom and defeated Haitian Kingdom. The skilled masters of our 6 kingdoms were adequate to kill those people at Forbidden Mountain. I will never allow her to be so rude. So arrogant. The spirit beasts had been oppressed over the years. They worked like slaves under the oppression of humans, searching spirit herbs for humankind all over the place. If these spirit beasts turn against them, who would find the spirit herbs for them in the future? There were only small numbers of spirit herbs in Fangzhou mainland. Without the keen sense of smell of spirit beasts, it was difficult for them to find spirit herbs, and they could only live by eating the old ones handed down from the past ancestors. But those old things could not last for generations. Your Majesty Xian Yuan, let's go and besiege those people right now. We will make her understand that only humans are in charge of this world, and we can't let the spirit beasts turn against us. Emperor Xian Yuan remained silent, but his expression was somewhat unsightly. He looked down at the other emperors sitting in front of him and finally opened his mouth to speak in a cold and serious tone. It is indeed the best time for me to show my power. Some people must understand who is in charge of this world. As Emperor Xian Yuan began laughing, the rest of the emperors joined him, fearlessly. Indeed. That girl is guilty of endangering our people with her Tier 7, disguised spirit beasts. Emperor Xian Yuan, we must attack now. We can't let her go too far. She has slaughtered the retired emperor of Tianhua Kingdom, so we must kill her by ourselves to regain our prestige, and she can't be buried within Fangzhou mainland. These people were so lively, expressing their views and had even set a death date for Feng Ruqing. But, Emperor Ao Tian pondered for a moment. The Emperor of Tianhua Kingdom has come to my kingdom recently, so do I have to give him a hand? No need. He's so useless. He's been driven out of Tianhua Kingdom and has lost his power. Helping him is such a waste. Emperor Xian Yuan laughed coldly, shaking his head. They came from the same ancestor, but all of them had gone through so many generations that any feelings of familial connections had pretty much faded. However, with Emperor Xian Yuan ruling Fangzhou mainland, the 8 kingdoms were safe and sound for years. No one dared to compete for territory, but rather, they were united in dealing with those poor spirit beasts. I am interested in a spirit beast that can transform into a human, so I'll join this battle. Emperor Xian Yuan flicked his sleeves and stood up from the dragon chair with a serious look on his face. He straightened his waists and walked forward angrily. Unfortunately, as he was walking down the steps, he had accidentally tripped and fallen onto the ground. Me for extra chapters. But he acted like he was fine. He stood up calmly, waving his robe. He also stopped the eunuchs who came to help him and looked around at the emperors with a serious gaze. The emperors coughed, clearing their throats and straightening themselves. We didn't see anything just now. Emperor Xianyuan waved his sleeve calmly as if nothing had happened just now. He took a swift step forward, gradually disappearing from the emperor's eyes. The rest of the emperors dispersed after Emperor Xianyuan had left. This time, they had brought all their people together, so they could immediately set off to Forbidden Land after getting ready. We better get there before those people do so that we can ambush them. Chapter 1176, Forbidden Mountain, Forbidden Land. This was a mountain range and the peaks were so tall that they were soaring into the clouds. However, the danger was lurking at every corner. Enriching had just entered the mountain range when she felt that something was not quite right. She and Nan Xian, who was beside her, exchanged glances and they looked at the dense forest. In the forest, there were waves of murderous intent hiding. Even the temperature in the air had fallen quite a bit. Xiao Qing, what is the matter? Gu Yi stared at Enriching and Nan Xian, who had stopped moving forward. Her eyes contained a tinge of incomprehension, obviously not knowing what had happened. Mu Qingyin was also silent, but he subconsciously pulled Gu Yi behind his back. He looked at the leaves that were rustling nearby. Enriching laughed a little and took 2 big steps forward. She scanned the empty mountain forest. A small smile hung on her lips. Since all of you have chosen to ambush us, why are you still hiding now that we have appeared? Ha ha ha. Waves of laughter rang out from the forest, like a devilish sound echoing in everyone's ears, not fading even after a long while. A few moments later, countless figures appeared from the forest. They stood in mid-air. Their gazes were cold as they looked down on the crowd below. Amongst those people, the one leading them was a stern and cold old man. He wore a bright yellow dragon robe with the words Xianyuan imprinted on it, as if fearing that others would not know his identity. He looked foolish, and a little retarded. Young lady, you are so young. Why are you with the spirit beasts and choosing to kill your own countrymen instead? Who told you that you and I are countrymen? We are all humans. Are we not countrymen? The vengeance between spirit beasts and humans had supposedly ended many years ago. In the past, there was a traitor like Haitian Kingdom's king. Now, there is you. Have you ever thought of how humans would be able to handle it if the spirit beasts rebelled? Enriching gently rubbed her chin. Are all humans enemies with spirit beasts, or is it just all of you, who want to make spirit beasts your slaves? Emperor Xianyuan's face darkened. This little girl really did not take heed of his words. Me for extra chapters. Since that was the case, they could not really complain that these few old folks were besieging these young people. Oh, that's right. Do you all know why spirit herbs are so rare in this place? Enriching asked with a smile. Emperor Xianyuan was stunned and asked, skeptically, why? Because spirit beasts do not have intelligence. Her eyes were filled with mockery. They looked beautiful and bright. All of you have ordered the beasts to pluck the spirit herbs properly, but that is entirely impossible. They only know how to pluck them from the roots. Once the roots are gone, it would take countless years for herbs to be upgraded into spirit herbs. Spirit herbs grew when herbs had sufficient spirit chi. Only then would they become spirit herbs. Spirit herbs would keep on growing as long as their roots were intact. If the roots were destroyed, then it would need countless years to be promoted from ordinary herbs. It was also because of this that there were not many spirit herbs on this mainland. At least, the number of spirit herbs were not comparable to Tsangyu mainland. This time, not only Emperor Xianyuan was stunned, even the other monarchs who were behind him were also stunned. The looks they gave Enriching were filled with doubts. It was as if they were trying to verify the authenticity of her words. After all, they had always lived like this. They, too, plucked spirit herbs were from the roots. They had never left behind any roots. Even if what you said is true, so what? Monarch Xianyuan regained his senses and indifferently said, "Previously, the spy I have left in Haitian Kingdom had brought back news saying that you had quite a bit of the spirit herbs, too. What about this, if you leave behind the spirit herbs?" Chapter 1177, Forbidden Mountain, Forbidden Land 2. He paused for a moment and squinted. "I will let the little white face, one, next to you go." Little white face. State Preceptor Nansien. Feng Ruching slowly turned her head to her side and looked at the handsome man's face. Her fingers lightly rubbed against her chin and her smile widened. "That's right. The State Preceptor is so good-looking. He does have the potential to become a little white face, indeed. State Preceptor, why don't I work hard to surpass you and then support your livelihood?" Nan Xian was as indifferent as the light breeze. He did not look at the group of the people, it was as if he did not care about being called a little white face. All right. In the past life, the 9th Emperor was Nan Changfeng's benefactor. Everyone knew that Nan Changfeng was kept by the 9th Emperor and that he was one of the members of her harem. He had long gotten used to this address. After all, as long as she was accompanying him, regardless of how, it was good. He had no other desires. For real? Feng Ruching smilingly asked. "Yes, you can support me now. I'm very easy to support. As long as I have 3 meals, that is enough. I can even eat less, or meditate and not eat." A smile hung on the handsome man's face. His words were as cold as usual, yet it contained a deep warmth that everyone noticed. Everyone who was there was ruthlessly fed dog food, too. Their faces had all turned black, especially all the emperors. They were here to ambush these people, but this group of people had ended up taking them lightly and were even displaying affection publicly in front of them. This was too hateful. "Emperor Xianyuan, we do not need to talk nonsense with these people. Just strike the little white face first." Emperor Ao Tian's eyes were ruthless as he viciously spoke through gritted teeth. Nan Xian, who had been addressed as a little white face, calmly glanced at Emperor Ao Tian. "Me for extra chapters." Not knowing how, just by this glance, Emperor Ao Tian's heart trembled and his whole body shivered. According to the spies hidden in Haitian Kingdom, Feng Ruching had gone to Haitian Kingdom for this man. A man who had been shut away by Haitian Kingdom would naturally not have much ability. It was a pity that these spies did not have enough resources and naturally did not know the reason Haitian Kingdom had been annihilated back then. Furthermore, they were unable to gather the information that this so-called little white face had such impressionable cultivation. Precisely because of their ignorance, they did not know fear and had provoked them multiple times. "Young lady, I will give you another." Emperor Xianyuan started speaking in a serious tone. He had just started to speak when he saw a young lady who stood behind Feng Ruching take off her shoe. With a thud, it was thrown at the defenseless Emperor Xianyuan's face. "Motherfucker. You have eyed our little Qing'er's spirit herbs again and again. And you have even called Nan Xian a little white face. Take a look at this man. Is he a little white face? Which part of him looks like a little white face? This is obviously a vixen. Do all of you not know how to speak? I, Gui, despise old people like you who claim others to be a little white face the most. When I leave this place, I will tell my father, Gu Shi, and ask him to destroy your group of bastards." In this life, Xianyuan had never been scolded while being pointed at. His face immediately turned dark now that he was scolded so badly by a young lady. A faint storm gathered around him. His eyes were clouded in fury. Preposterous. You motherfucker. Gui put her hands on her waist and pointed at Emperor Xianyuan, who was in the air, and started scolding. Is it because you bunch of ugly people cannot bear the fact that others are looking good? To actually call a vixen a little white face. Are there such shameless people like you guys? How could a vixen and a little white face be the same? A little white face was weak and easy to bully. A vixen was intentionally here to steal away the woman she loved. Chapter 1178, Little Guogua showing off. Emperor Xian Yuan's face was serious. He would never admit that he was not able to defeat this sharp-tongued little Gao. Therefore, he remained silent for a while before continuing, Everybody, let us not waste time. Settle these people. We still need to rush back. The moment he finished speaking, the powerful warriors from other countries surrounded Feng Ruching. The entire forest was filled with an astonishing murderous intent. Furthermore, these people, the majority of them were actually at Holy Warrior tier, and their cultivation levels were not low. Nan Xian's expression remained unchanged and indifferent. His white clothes were fluttering and he looked like a fairy, as if he was not of this world. Qinger, leave these to me. You can just stand behind me. All right. Feng Ruching obediently walked behind Nan Xian. Her smile was dazzling, stunning, and able to bring the whole city to its knees. Her smile was more captivating than roses. Emperor Xianyuan squinted as he sized up Nan Xian. He had originally thought this was a little white-faced one, but after hearing his words, he looked at him a little differently. At the same time, there was already someone who had jumped in front of Nan Xian. Nan Xian's eyes were beautiful, calm, and indifferent. His hands slowly raised and a snow-white sword fell into his palm. When the man's hand held the sword, infinite power spread from the surrounding of the sword. Even the sword chi turned white and transformed into a fierce dragon. It flew toward the old man who had suddenly attacked. With a bang, it went right through his chest. The old man's eyes widened. Blood oozed from his chest. His body fell and hit the ground brutally. Sudden death. Emperor Xianyuan sneered and waved his sleeve. It seems like I have misjudged you. It turns out that you have hidden the fact that you are a holy warrior. He had included himself as part of the praise. All the emperors were stunned. Perhaps they had never thought that this man was also at holy warrior tier. However, they had only paused momentarily before they, once again, rushed toward Nan Xian. The forest had already been tainted by blood and was filled with a murderous aura. Just like a bloody battlefield. Xianyuan did not take the lead in attacking, but was simply observing Nan Xian. A while later, he let out a sarcastic sneer. Me for extra chapters. Seeing your situation, I believe that you have just entered Advanced Holy Warrior tier not long ago, while I have already reached that tier 10 years ago. Therefore, he paused, then ruthlessly said, all of you do not need to be bothered about him. Just leave this rascal to me. Go over to settle that young maiden first. Emperor Xianyuan was the leader of the 8 kingdoms. As these 8 kingdoms were birds of a feather, besides Haitian kingdom, the other 6 kingdoms had always been fighting. There was also another exception, and that was Xianyuan kingdom. As the leader of the 8 kingdoms, the other kingdoms' emperors had also listened to Emperor Xianyuan's orders. Since he had already spoken today, these people immediately left Nan Xian alone and moved toward Feng Ruching like a gust of wind. Originally, Nan Xian could have blocked these people. With Nan Xian's hindrance, they were not necessarily able to go over. However, at this moment, Feng Ruching took 2 steps forward. Yes, it was as if she was shocked silly. She did not continue to hide behind Nan Xian but had sneakily taken 2 steps forward. Everyone saw that. Emperor Ao Tian felt a jolt of happiness in his heart. A fierce-looking spear was about to land on Feng Ruching, and it was as if he was a sword carrying a fierce aura. Chapter 1179. Little Guogua showing off. Too logically speaking, Nan Xian should feel angry or anxious when seeing Emperor Ao Tian approaching Feng Ruching. However, Emperor Xian Yuan saw that he was still calm and indifferent. It was as if everything was under control. Emperor Xian Yuan's heart sank. He did not have much time to think too much. His old body flashed across the sky and he stood before Nan Xian. Little guy, you alone will never be able to resist the strength of my 6 countries. From now on, there would be only 6 kingdoms on Fangzhou mainland. Haitian Kingdom and Tianyue Kingdom that had already been annihilated were not included amongst the 6 kingdoms. Nan Xian indifferently waved his sword and it clashed with the sword that Emperor Xian Yuan had slashed down from the air. Infinite strength dispersed from both sides. Emperor Xian Yuan's expression changed drastically. He actually felt a jolt of numbness in his arms. His face turned green, and his throat contained a mouthful of blood that he had almost spit out. He was the most skilled master in Fangzhou mainland. He definitely could not lose all his dignity in front of a little guy. Therefore, he had forcefully swallowed the blood that was just about to reach the top of his throat. Little guy, you better look at your woman properly now. In a moment, she will become a soul under our swords. Emperor Xian Yuan's lips curled up into a sneer as he looked at Nan Xian condescendingly. He was implying, no matter how Nan Xian resisted today, it would be in vain. If he could not even protect his own woman, so what was the use of living on? However, just as Emperor Xian Yuan turned his head, his smile froze. His pupils shrank as if he had just seen an unbelievable scene. His green complexion turned white. He saw that there was a huge pot hanging in the sky. There was even a door on the pot. It had an old bronze color that made it look like it was quite old. The pot had long been rusty and dull, but it was abnormally fierce. The pot was constantly smashing downward, ruthlessly hitting the heads of the 6 kingdoms' skilled masters as if it were hitting gophers. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The pot let out a violent sound as it trembled. Knocking them once was not enough, so after a knock, it struck those heads desperately as if it wanted to smash open all those heads. All the 6 kingdoms' skilled masters had quite good cultivation. Their heads were also very tough and naturally would not split open with just a few knocks. This cultivation was much stronger than Haitian Kingdom's holy warrior tier skilled master who had died in vain. Me for extra chapters. Even so, this pot had used such great strength. It was not something they could endure and they were unable to attack Feng Ruching anymore. They could only cover their heads and scatter as they fled. However, the pot was getting more and more excited as it knocked their heads and it had no intention of stopping. It chased around this group of people that were running fast. Emperor Xian Yuan was left speechless. He looked at the group of emperors who were being chased around by a pot and his entire old face was flushed. He felt that his reputation was lost before he screamed angrily, "All of you, stop." Nobody heeded him. In the whole forest, the only thing that responded to him was the sound of the wind. Emperor Xian Yuan's expression turned even uglier. This was the first time the group of people did not listen to his orders. "I want all of you to stop. Otherwise, I will send people to annihilate your kingdom. Even a pot of unknown origin can scare you all to such an extent. Your behavior is just ruining the reputation of our Fangzhou mainland." This time, Emperor Xian Yuan was indeed very furious. Thus, he was unable to find the right words. His eyes were filled with anger. As predicted, the group of people stopped in their tracks. Chapter 1180. Little Guogua showing off 3. Even the pot who was chasing after the crowd stopped and looked down at Emperor Xian Yuan who was standing underneath it. Yes, this pot did not have eyes, but Emperor Xianyuan kept feeling that it was looking at him. It was like looking at him as if he was a pot of food that it could cook. It was an eerie feeling that left him terrified. The huge pot pondered for a moment and appeared before Emperor Xianyuan. The whole rusty iron pot smashed down on him. This violent force finally made Emperor Xianyuan understand the pain the other emperors had felt. Painful. Too painful. Since he had broken through to Holy Warrior tier, his head had long become as strong as iron. This was the first time he was experiencing the pain from being knocked like this in many years. In his anger, Emperor Xianyuan no longer bothered about Nan Xian, but used his sword to slash at the iron pot. Only to hear a crack. His sword that was forged using cold star iron had snapped into two pieces. Emperor Xianyuan's body stiffened. He stiffly raised his head and looked at the appearance of the iron pot that had acquired a little crack on its surface. The surface that was broken was the layer of rust that had long rusted. The other parts of it were unharmed. Emperor Xianyuan, this woman is a devil. Emperor Ao Tian held his head that had already been knocked uncountable times as he cried in a pitiful manner. I clearly saw that this pot was released by this woman. She is a devil. Emperor Xianyuan, let's leave. Emperor Xianyuan also felt fearful in his heart. But if he ran away, his reputation would be ruined. How would he rule Xianyuan Kingdom in the future? If this were spread out, he really would not be able to face the world anymore. Therefore, Emperor Xianyuan spoke in a serious and steady manner with a straight face. Am I the kind of person who would run away? It is just an iron pot. Could it possibly knock me to death? Furthermore, even if I die here, I would have died with dignity. At least I am worthy of the people of Xianyuan Kingdom. I am dying for Fangzhou mainland. Therefore, I would rather not be a deserter. He looked upright, just, and awe-inspiring. His face was cold and his words were righteous. All the kingdom's emperors looked at Emperor Xianyuan in awe. Me for extra chapters. Of course, if his legs could stop shaking, perhaps they would believe in him a little more. Buzz buzz buzz. The huge pot got angry and it leaped up and stuffed all those people before it into itself as fast as it could. It even took out some cumin, sesame oil, salt, pepper, and chili from an unknown place and poured everything inside it. The huge pot's actions were too fast. It was so fast that before anyone could react, those people were already inside it, desperately struggling but in vain. Wow, is little Guogua making food? Qing Han smelled the fragrant cumin, and without Feng Rooking's agreement, she came out from the medium. Not only were the other people stunned, even when Guiyi was stunned and seemed surprised when she saw Qing Han appear out of thin air. Xiao Qing, do you have a storage bag that can store living things? Otherwise, how could little Qing Han suddenly appear? Previously, she had thought Qing Han and Fu Qin, these two spirit beasts, had left beforehand. She had never thought that Feng Ruqing had brought them both with her. Feng Rooking's smile was a little awkward. Yes. After replying, she lightly pinched the back of Qing Han's hand, but she suddenly saw Mu Qingjian's contemplative gaze on her. A storage bag that could store living things, such a thing could be used to cheat Guiyi, but if she wanted to hide this from second uncle, that would be a little difficult. Good thing Mu Qingyin did not ask anything and simply looked at the battlefield. Chapter 1181, Little Guogua showing off for. As for Nan Xian, it seemed that no matter how many secrets Feng Ruqing had, he had never asked about them. Only then did Feng Ruqing let out a sigh of relief. Good thing the one who came out was Qing Han. If it were Fu Qin, a few days' worth of spirit herbs would have to be deducted as a punishment. Little Qing Han did not even notice the current situation. Her drool was literally flowing as she looked at the huge pot cooking. The huge pot obviously did not light a fire. Not knowing how, little Chin Han could already smell the fragrance. After a moment, the huge pot stopped moving. It tilted slightly to the side and poured out the group of people. The people who had entered came out perfectly without harm. Besides the various seasonings and spices stuck to their faces, the only change was their expressions. Master. They looked at Feng Ruqing and called out respectfully. Monarch Xian Yuan was speechless. Even Feng Ruqing was equally speechless. Not waiting for the huge pot to give Feng Ruqing an answer, it once again scooped up the people, except for Emperor Xian Yuan, into the pot. It did not stop stir-frying them, but there was only the fragrance of the seasonings without the smell of food being cooked. Fu Chen. Feng Ruqing took a deep breath and shouted through gritted teeth. A flash of light appeared and Fu Chen's skinny figure appeared before Feng Ruqing. His face was immature and the corner of his lips carried a smile. Mother. Ask this pot how he has done it. She could only let Fu Chen handle the task of communicating with the pot. I know. Fu Chen looked at the pot. This pot is used to cook spirit herbs. The spiritual qi it contains is too strong, so it has started to have a mind of its own and thus is able to recognize its master. However, Fu Chen looked at the people who stood in front of Feng Ruqing. Back then, when I was bored, I had flipped through the 9th Emperor's manuals. There was once the description of this pot. It could use its enemy's strength as its own. You are the master of this pot. Naturally, you have become the master of these people. However, he paused for a moment and continued, not all people can be changed. The pot would not be able to change people who are able to differentiate black and white clearly. This is regardless of how strong the huge pot is. Also, the huge pot is unable to suppress people who have cultivation that is too strong. People who are able to differentiate black and white clearly meant that those whose characters were too dark, or too naive and pure where the world they lived in only had white and no darkness. They had never seen darkness and thought too well of everyone, and the kind of people who were too saintly. The huge pot was able to change them. This means that these people's characters were between black and white, me for extra chapters. Their black or darkness was leaning more towards spirit beasts. However, they were not entirely bad. At least to the citizens of these kingdoms, they were considered wise emperors. If that had not been the case, the huge pot would not have been able to change these people. Of course, it was lucky that these people were only at lower holy warrior tier. That was why the huge pot had the ability to change these people. Like Emperor Xian Yuan who was at advanced holy warrior tier, the huge pot did not touch him, which simply implied that with the huge pot's current cultivation, it could at most bully him a little, and had no way to suppress him in the pot. As Fu Chen was explaining, the last of these people had also been spilled out by it and they respectfully stood by Feng Ruqing's side. Greetings, Master. Feng Ruqing let out a laugh. You all wanted to kill me just now. No, we were just listening to the words of the bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom. We had almost mistakenly heard a good person. Now, we have already understood a lot of matters and are willing to obey Master. From now onwards, Master may dispatch us as Master pleases. Chapter 1182, Little Guogua showing off V. In the future, we will no longer believe in this bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom. He had caused us to almost hurt a good person like Master by mistake. Alright. Just now, all of you scolded my man saying that he was a little white face. Feng Ruqing grinningly stroked her chin. Her voice, however, was cold. The group of people shuddered inexplicably. Even the surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped quite a bit. It is the words of the bastard of Xian Yuan Kingdom, not ours. That's right. It is him. It was also him who had brought us to besiege Master. We dare not do this anymore in the future. We beg Master to forgive us and spare our lives. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Just at this moment, those people felt the angry gaze of Emperor Xian Yuan, and so they surrounded him from all sides. Between his and Nan Xian's cultivation, he felt that they were evenly matched, although he did lose out a little earlier on. Adding on to their advantage of having more people, there was no way he would have lost. However, the opposing side not only had an additional huge pot of unknown origin now. Furthermore, those people who were at Holy Warrior tier that was originally on his side had already been subdued by that huge pot. He had not even figured out what exactly had happened, but all of them had already betrayed him. What exactly did you do to them? Emperor Xian Yuan and the pot that could not speak had no way of communicating. Therefore, he looked at Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian in anger and asked coldly. Impudent. After hearing this question from Emperor Xian Yuan, Emperor Ao Tian, who had earlier treated him like a lord, immediately shouted angrily, "Who allowed you to be so rude to Master? Apologize to Master immediately." Emperor Xian Yuan was speechless. He felt like he was holding in his anger and that it was stuck in his chest, causing him to almost suffocate to death in this forest. However, when he was just about to take action, he saw Nan Xian scanning him indifferently. The huge pot in the sky was also looming over him with a vague stance of wanting to crash down from the sky. On the other hand, the other skilled masters he had brought were almost all killed by Nan Xian just now. Thinking that he was alone now and that the enemy's side had too many people and their cultivation was too strong, he held back his anger. Feng Ruqing smiled and approached Emperor Xian Yuan. You earlier said that my fiancé is a little white face. Emperor Xian Yuan's breath was caught in his throat. Could this little girl be holding a grudge? He had only thoughtlessly said that and she had remembered it until now. I have just misjudged the situation. Could it be that I am not allowed to even misjudge? Perhaps he was worried of being beaten up. He did not even address himself as Zhen, but his old face was still stoic and he was not willing to lower his noble head. Right. I did not say that you could not misjudge, it is just that, you need to pay the price for saying something you should not have said. Little Guogua, hit him 50 times. You are not allowed to stop if the 50 hits are not completed, me for extra chapters. Boss. Little Guogua shivered in excitement and started to smash down at Emperor Xian Yuan hard. This time, Emperor Xian Yuan was in so much pain that even his face twisted in agony and he started shouting in anger, "Do not bully me just because you have numbers on your side. I am telling you, if you make me anxious, no matter how many people you have, I will still take action." The huge pot was not even bothered by his threat and continued to smash down on him from high up in the sky. It was also lucky that Emperor Xian Yuan's head was hard, only then did his head not split due to the smashes. However, this kind of pain was nonetheless not something an ordinary person could endure. He clenched his fist and was filled with fury. I am not kidding. If you continue to smash my head, I will take action. If you take action, 100 times. You cannot even defeat my pot, what more my fiancé? Do you think you alone are the match of so many of us? Emperor Xian Yuan was really depressed. He really had no way of defeating this pot. The huge pot was more depressed. Master had actually mocked it for not being as strong as a wild man. It was obviously a huge pot who had lived for over 1,000 years. How was it not comparable to a human being? The angry huge pot did not dare to vent its anger on Nan Xian and could only vent all its anger on Emperor Xian Yuan. Chapter 1183, Ancestor Mo Jun I Emperor Xian Yuan's eyes were practically spitting fire out of fury. However, seeing that he was facing the danger of so many people, his intention to revolt was suppressed. Just a while ago, he was still laughing at the crowd who were holding their heads and fleeing from the huge pot. Now, he had become the person he was laughing at. The huge pot did not appear to have the intention to stop. Each smash was more powerful than the one before. It seemed to be going all out, venting all its fury, smashing so hard that Emperor Xianyuan, who was earlier pretending to be strong, had totally lost it and was on the verge of tears. What do you want? What exactly do you want? Did I not just bring people to ambush you? Do you need to bully people like this? Feng Ruqing looked at Emperor Xianyuan's crying face and waved her hand to stop the huge pot's actions. She smiled, gently rubbed her chin, and stared at the old man who stood before her. Then, speak. Who exactly were you calling a little white face? Emperor Xianyuan really could not hold back his tears this time and started crying. His tears were rolling down his cheeks and he was full of grievances and resentment. He had merely said the phrase, little white face, without much thought, and she had actually held a grudge to such an extent. I am the little white face. I am the little white face. Is that enough? No one who had reached Emperor Xianyuan's level was unafraid of death. Everyone in this piece of land obeyed his orders. If he were to die in this kind of place, how much of a loss would that be for him? In the beginning, he wanted to hold up his old face in front of all the emperors and thus acted as if he was very calm. Now that this group of people had already been enchanted to the point where their minds were no longer clear, he also did not have the need to care so much about his reputation and face. Staying alive was the only most important thing. Feng Ruqing scanned Emperor Xianyuan from top to bottom. The wrinkles on your face are so plentiful that they could be used to squash mosquitoes. Your skin is as dark as coal. You are telling me that you are a little white face. What about this? If you can find someone to financially support you, I will let you go. Emperor Xianyuan stopped breathing for a moment. Although he was arrogant and proud, he still had some self-awareness. Even though there were numerous beauties in the inner palace, this girl had only looked at the might he held and definitely did not fancy him because of his old wrinkly face. If he were to abandon this status, even finding a beautiful virgin would already be difficult, not to mention getting the opposite party to support him. For the first time, Emperor Xianyuan's heart had such admiration for a little white face. At least if he was a little white face, he could find someone to support him, and this life of his could still be kept. But now, he had an urge to cry out loud without holding back. Me for extra chapters. Young lady, I am already so old. Do not make things difficult for me. I just heard that you had subdued the spirit beasts and was worried that these spirit beasts would bring harm to Fangzhou mainland. That was why we had planned to first destroy you and make the spirit beasts leaderless so that they would be easier to handle. Feng Ruqing squinted. Who told you that spirit beasts would bring harm to this mainland? It was not told to me by someone else but rather passed down by the ancestors. Back then, our ancestors had difficulties subduing these spirit beasts and thus have passed down some rules. We humans should make spirit beasts our slaves in every generation and we must not allow them to rise up again. Otherwise, it will inevitably bring disaster to the mainland. We are just following the last words of the ancestors. Feng Ruqing glanced at Emperor Xianyuan indifferently. Who is your ancestor? Mo Jun. This was not a secret in Fangzhou mainland. There was nothing that could not be said. After hearing this name, Feng Ruqing's expression remained the same. Only Nan Xian's gaze had a tinge of seriousness and a vague murderous intent flashed in his clear eyes. However, he quickly hid it away and continued to look at Feng Ruqing warmly. Chapter 1184, Ancestor Mo Jun 2. Just like the soft moonlight and gentle wind. Qinger, just kill him and we will continue on with our journey. The man's tone was just as calm as before. His eyes were clear and cold. Feng subconsciously nodded and her lips curled up slightly. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed after listening to these words. He looked like he was crying. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I am still very useful. At least I, alone, am as strong as everyone here. Why don't you get the pot to refine me? I am really obedient. It was better to beg and live than to die a dignified death. Currently, there were no citizens of Xianyuan Kingdom around and there was no way of losing face here. After all, the skilled masters he brought had all died. Leaving him alone behind, he did not need to bother about his reputation anymore. After all, it was better than dying. Feng raised her head and looked at the huge pot. The huge pot buzzed and shook desperately. Mother, the huge pot said it could not refine him. Why don't we just eat him? Fu Chen's distinct voice rang out. Emperor Xian Yuan's face turned pale. He looked at Feng in fear and then looked at the cold, calm man beside her. A chill pierced through his heart. It was so cold that he trembled a couple of times. Without refining me, I can still be used by you all. Really? Feng gently rubbed her chin as if considering Emperor Xian Yuan's words. Emperor Xian Yuan made a difficult decision. I know the secret of the barrier. Oh. Feng raised her brows and finally looked at Emperor Xian Yuan. You know of the barrier's existence and are still alive. You have definitely not seen the dangers of this barrier. This is the Forbidden Mountain's outer parts. If all of you are to move forward, you will enter the barrier. There are many dangers in the barrier. Bring me along. With my cultivation, at least, I can help all of you a little. Feng smilingly said, what you have said seems to make sense. Emperor Xian Yuan subconsciously felt relieved. Before he was able to continue speaking, Feng had already taken the sword from Nan Xian's hand and was walking toward Emperor Xian Yuan smilingly. Me for extra chapters. However, I feel that you cannot even defeat my pot. You would definitely just be a burden. Also, you cannot give us any better information, so, why not? Emperor Xian Yuan's body trembled. At the outermost part of the barrier, there is a savage beast guarding the place. That savage is called Tun and it is extraordinarily feral and fierce. However, I know its weakness. Its weakness is that it is afraid of water, but not ordinary water. Chapter 1185, Ancestor Mo June 3. All these years, they could not even defeat the savages. If even they could not defeat it, the others would not stand a chance then. Qinger, bring him along. Nan Xian's expression was calm and indifferent. If there are any dangers, we still have him to face them. All right. Feng frowned. However, State Preceptor, don't you feel like we have forgotten something? Nan Xian calmly shook his head. No. I have brought along everything necessary. Feng went silent for a moment. She turned around and looked at Gu Yi and Mu Qingyin. Then she lowered her head to look at Fu Chen and Qing Han who were beside her. That was right. Everyone who should come along was there, but she still felt like something was missing. However, at the moment, she could not remember what it was that she had forgotten. Since there is nothing that we have left behind, we should continue with our journey. Feng turned and looked at Emperor Xian Yuan and gave him a kick. You, lead the way in front. Yes. Yes, yes. To keep his life, this generation's Emperor of Xianyuan Kingdom was nodding and bowing like a pug. His face carried a forced smile of surviving a life-and-death ordeal. Tianyue Kingdom. In the Imperial Palace. A small little green snake yawned and slowly climbed into the house. Today, I have awoken too late. It looks so dark. That's right, where are my master and the princess? How come I do not see that bastardly couple today? Not far away, a wolfhound was slowly walking over. It was stunned when it saw Qing Zhu, who was yawning. Qing Zhu was also stunned when it saw the wolfhound. The two of them looked at each other for a couple of seconds before Qing Zhu slowly opened its mouth. Little dog, did you see that bastardly coo? Ah, Tui, did you see my master and the princess? Yes, this dog was practically the princess dog. It definitely could not speak badly about the princess in front of this dog. Otherwise, this dog would definitely tell on it. The wolfhound was stunned for a second. Master has already brought along with her the state preceptor and left. She said they were going to return to their old home. That's right, a place called Sangyu Mainland. Why are you still here? Xiao Qing's body was frozen. The blood in its whole body had also solidified. Even the air also seemed to have changed slightly. After a moment, only did Qing Zhu manage to collect its voice. It tilted its head to the side and stared. Where did you say they have left to? To their old home. However, you do not have to be too sad. Perhaps they are unable to bring us, these beasts, when returning home. Master has also promised that she will come back in the future to bring us along with her. Me for extra chapters. You all can't follow them back to their old home, but I can. I am their fellow villager. I am also a snake from Sangyu Mainland. Now, Xiao Qing understood its current predicament. Its own master, that bastard, only had the princess in his eyes. He had left behind this living snake. Qing Zhu cried out in pain. It was too late to pack up, and so it ran away with tears, quickly disappearing into the sunset. The wolfhound could not understand why Qing Zhu was so sad. It was not like Master was not returning. She had promised them that she would return. Since that was the case, they should just obediently wait for her at home. The wolfhound naturally could not understand that to Qing Zhu, being left behind by Nan Xian and Feng Ruching felt like the sky had fallen. There was no more hope left in its whole snake life. Actually, Feng Ruching and Nan Xian were not to be blamed. Qing Zhu very rarely appeared before Feng Ruching, and it was not one of her spirit beasts. It was difficult for her to remember this snake. It was only because of her love for Qing Zhu that she vaguely remembered she had left something behind. As for Nan Xian. Cough cough. This bastard only had the memory span of a goldfish. Expecting him to remember Qing Zhu. That was almost impossible. Chapter 1186, Ancestor Mo June 4. Usually, Qing Zhu would follow him closely, but once it lost track, its master would forget about him. If not because of Feng Ruching, who had always reminded him, he would not have remembered anything. In this life, Feng Ruching was the only one that he would never forget. Forbidden Mountain. Feng Ruching could no longer hold back the sneeze. She rubbed her nose and turned to Nan Xian curiously. State Preceptor, was someone cursing me just now? Who dares to do that? Nan Xian laughed coldly. Oh, we really haven't forgotten anything. Feng Ruching frowned and pondered for a while. She could not recall anything that might have been left behind. She had brought everything that she needed, and only Nan Xian might have left something behind. Nan Xian shook his head. Nothing. Really? Yes, Nan Xian gently took Feng Ruching's hand. Because I don't have anything but you. I've nothing left behind as long as you are with me. All he had was Feng Ruching. Therefore, Nan Xian was sure that he did not leave anything behind, not even wanting to spare a thought. All right, Feng Ruching looked relieved for a moment. Maybe because I didn't have Cho-Cho and the little dog with me, so I'm not quite used to it, I feel like I've left something behind. If you said so, then I'm relieved. Emperor Xian Yuan's face changed slightly. At this age, it was too unbearable for him to watch these young people showing affection to each other. It was better for him to send them away as quickly as possible to save his own life. Little Guogua, Feng Ruqing suddenly thought of something and turned to the huge pot. Will these people escape if their power increases? The huge pot buzzed, but Feng Ruqing did not know what it was saying. She turned again to Fu Qin. Fu Chen was quiet for a while. It says that it can't hold down the powerful one, but once he has been controlled by it, he won't escape unless he dies. All right, then I am relieved. Feng Ruqing smiled happily. She lifted her hand and patted Fu Chen's head. Fu Chen, you understand not only the spirit beasts, now you can even understand the pot's language. Do you have anything that you can't understand? Fu Chen thought briefly. I saw some words in the book that said women's mind is just like a needle at the bottom of the sea. I don't understand. Woman's mind, me for extra chapters. After all, he had never heard any voice from his mother's mind. You will surely understand once you have found a girl you love. Just like you and Qing Han, when she is hungry, you can quickly understand her even just by one look. You also know when she wants to make trouble and take the lead on that.